There's a well-known UAP legend out there. Jackie Gleason was friends with Nixon. Before Nixon left office, he went with Gleason to an Air Force base in the South, and he showed him what was supposed to be a UFO with aliens, perished in some kind of crash. And his wife shared that story and stated it was 100% legit, that Gleason saw what he saw. It disturbed him a lot. He didn't eat for a week.
Do you think that there is a possibility that some of these are something to do with consciousness?
I think the answer is yes.
Do you think Grush is... You think that's legit?
He's totally legit. Absolutely, 100%. 'Cause I know people who... I don't know him. I've not met him, but I know people who do know him well and work with him. And I kind of know his pedigree. I also worked in the Navy as an oceanographer. I was actually part of a larger information warfare community. So I worked closely with the Office of Naval Intelligence and the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency where he was. In fact, I know the last 5 directors personally, and have, so that he is what he says he is, 100%. And so I'm sure of everything he's, and I also know how the government works. So like, for example, he talks about these SAPs that he couldn't get access to, but he knew people who were, and they were telling him about it, these special access programs. And I've had that happen to me too, where, and this is like the Wilson memo. Do you know about that?
No, I don't.
Okay. I never thought I'd be so well versed in UAP lore to someone like you. But here we go. The Wilson memo is something, I forgot how it was leaked, but a physicist named Eric Davis, who was supposedly in the program, the UAP retrieval program, I don't know for sure, but he drafted a memo that got leaked, and it was a memo recording his interview with Admiral Wilson, who had a top intel job. And he was complaining that he heard about a UAP retrieval program in this memo, and this is the interview that he transcribed, Davis transcribed, and he was complaining that he couldn't get access to it because he didn't have a need to know. And when I read that, it reminded me of me, because here I was, a 1-star. I had my people were working with technology under a certain SAP, and I wanted to learn about that more so I could make better decisions for my people. And I had the SAP control officer say, no, sir, you don't have a need to know. And I thought that was BS. Here I am. I'm responsible for their well-being. I got to make sure they have all they need. If they're using something, this is totally in my right to, because I am responsible for their outcomes and their well-being, to know what they're working with. Oh no. What if it was hazardous to their health? Nope, you don't need to know, sir. So that's what Grush was talking about, that these people running the crash retrieval program they're leaving Congress in the dark, and they're not letting others with authority and responsibility know either. And that gets down to being illegal.
I mean, it sounds like a rogue entity.
Totally.
I mean, who would be running that?
Exactly. That's not how our government's supposed to work. That's not according to the Constitution as I know it.
Is it government?
Well, I don't know. But again, the most recent article from Chris Mellon today, I believe there is some Air Force oversight. I've also heard that there are contractors involved, big defense contractors, who, of course, have an interest in not letting that technology get out because they don't want to have to compete to use it. They want to have that exclusive right. So I believe that's going on. I don't know for sure.
Let's go into the interdimensional stuff. What do you know about that?
So I don't know anything.
You don't know anything?
I really don't. I mean, this is all people theorizing. I know there's a lot of math out there that can characterize multiple dimensions. And string theory is one of them. And it's funny because Avi Loeb just thinks string theorists are worthless because he doesn't think, there's no evidence. He's about, okay, show me the data. If there are other dimensions, I want to see the data. And that's kind of like Grush. Grush, he said he's not, no one's seen the alien bodies yet, but now I have another story if you want to get into that. There's a well-known UAP legend out there on Nixon and Jackie Gleason. Do you know about that?
I
Here I
don't.
am again. I never thought I'd be such a wealth of UAP stories. Okay, so Jackie Gleason was friends with Nixon, and he was kind of a UFO nut for some reason. And this has just come out, you can Google it, that there's some legend that before Nixon left office, he went with Gleason to an Air Force base in the South, and he showed him what was supposed to be a UFO with aliens, like in some warehouse. Aliens that had perished in some kind of crash. Now, this is the legend, right? Okay. Interestingly, I'm fishing in Key West last year, and my guide was pretty interested in this topic, and he connected me to another fisherman who I had a nice call with, and he's been interviewed on this publicly. His name is Mark Croca, and Mark has been seeing UAP in the skies off the Keys for over 10 years, and like big lighted cylindrical type objects that are clearly not U.S. aircraft. And he's actually seen jets from, I believe, the Florida Air Force Base down there sortie after these things, or scramble. So Mark and I talked about it. He's seen these often, and he shared with me about this Jackie Gleason thing, because he said when he was a kid, he worked as an assistant or janitor in this clubhouse in Florida that Jackie Gleason used to golf at, and his wife. And he met his wife after I think he passed, and she shared that story and stated it was 100% legit. That Gleason saw what he saw. It disturbed him a lot. He didn't eat for a week. He was so just upset with his whole worldview had been changed. And but this is again hearsay from a friend. But fishermen are really good observers, by the way. This guy didn't have any reason to like give me a story. He doesn't make his money off this. But Mark has that knowledge of that whole story.
Interesting. What do you? I mean, there's a lot of speculation on whether these are built by, the military-industrial complex type companies, or are they from foreign governments? Are they paranormal activity? I mean, what are your thoughts on all of that?
Well, one of the experts on this field is Jacques Vallée. He's been researching UAP since the 60s. He's just the expert, and I like his thinking. So I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm still new to this whole field, but I like his thinking on it. And he gives a really good talk at the Soul Foundation symposium. He gave one, and it's online. And he just characterized the fact that they are real. People have real experiences. And Diana Pasoka does the same thing in her book Encounters. She just chronicles all these experiences, and a lot of people are having really strange experiences. Many see craft. There's a paranormal component to it with either telepathic communication or other things. And I don't dismiss any of it. This is what Jacques says. He says, all that can be said is there is just a massive diversity in the types of experiences people have. You have a one camp that they're just focused on the nuts and bolts craft. And then you have people that are looking at that more paranormal aspect of it. And that's what exists. It's sort of like a spectrum of experiences. And I don't dismiss any of it. To me, it's people are having experiences. They report it. They're credible people. And there's a lot of them. And thus, my goal is to scientifically study it more and remove the stigma from it.
Audio Jungle.
How are you going to remove the stigma?
Shows like yours, this one right here, getting it out there. And here's the reason that I'm out talking about this. One is more credible people stepping up will help remove that stigma, and then also what's interesting is over time you'll see a generational shift in that there are a lot more young people open to this right now. It's just they think about it and they have more open minds. Interestingly, there's a parallel here that I've talked about in some of my speeches. The Diana Pasulka talks in her book, or she interviews a person named Ia Whiteley. And she's also one of these researchers that's helping with the Soul Foundation effort to study UAP and the phenomena. And her expertise is psychology. And she has made her living, if you will, or by studying both cockpit psychology, if you will, and human factors, as well as space capsule human factors. And so she's advised the ESA, I believe, and she noticed that in the 50s, let's say, after World War II, there was a big stigma for pilots to report safety issues in the cockpit because they would fear that if they couldn't handle something, they might get a low rating and get a poor performance evaluation. And that, it was the macho thing, the right stuff. No one's going to admit that they couldn't handle a certain thing. And it was only after a lot of planes fell out of the sky and pilots died that safety measures started to be studied and reporting for incidents in the cockpit about safety issues became accepted. And she studied this over time, and it took 25 years for that change to occur, which is a professional generation. And I think that's what's happening now. Congress has gotten out. A lot of credible scientists have gotten out. People like me, former national authorities, we're coming out to remove that stigma, to make this a credible scientific endeavor. I'm even working with a group to establish a master's degree program in UAP studies. So that's happening. And then so that I think that's what's going to remove the stigma, and it's already occurring.
What's that going to entail? The master's degree on UAP studies?
Yeah, well, really, I'd love to see a physics-based or engineering-based one, but that information's not out there yet in terms of crash retrieval. This one's going to be a humanities-based one that looks at some of the cultural and anthropological and societal issues around UAP, which there are many. I mean, if we're being visited by other civilizations with huge technology powers, what does that mean for society and everything else that could be possible with that?
I mean, do you think there's different kinds? Do you think that there is a possibility that some of these are kind of nuts and bolts types crafts and some are maybe something to do with consciousness, maybe something to do with some type of spirituality type stuff? I mean, what are you thinking?
I think the answer is yes, both.
To both.
I do. Think about this. So again, evolution. If we technology-wise walk our species forward 1,000, 1,000,000 years, my gosh, I mean, what will we have? I told you earlier, I was the last Naval Academy class not to have a computer. I wrote papers on an actual typewriter. Mm-hmm. Now, with one of these, I can access everything that humankind has ever discovered just with a few clicks. Mm-hmm. So think about, what about that? So with that in mind, it could be anything. So think about the evolution of both technology and the human brain and thought. So I accept our consciousness as what it is, but what about that evolving too? Think about that. A more highly evolved species will have a more highly evolved consciousness. We're not Neanderthals anymore. We're something we think is higher, and I think that's true. Walk that 1,000, 1,000,000 years. Then what are we going to be like? So I think that's, and Diana Pasulka does a great job looking into that consciousness aspect of it. because then you're also bordering, or you're really overlapping with religion now. And that's what she is. She's a professor of religious studies. And get this, she's terrific. She has access to the Vatican archives because of her position as a professor of religious studies. And she has gone through and looked at all this church history. And she has, in her book, American Cosmic and Encounters, and now in recent talks, she's pretty much deduced that these ascent narratives that exist in the Bible and the church history have some UAP either connection or explanation. So Diana, in her book, Encounters, and then American Cosmic, and then some of her talks later, she's looked at some of the church's history and writings from biblical scholars, and she has found that there are examples of apparitions, or what they call ascent narratives, that are indicative of actual UAP, so encounters. So, for example, there's this really famous story of Saint Francis of Assisi. I believe he was the one who cared for animals, and a lot of people wear pendants with him featured on that. And the story is that he saw an angel, and the angel somehow connected to him, and he received the wounds of Christ in his hands. And there's paintings out there. There's one in the Louvre I just saw, and it shows the angel, and these beams are shooting down into his hands, and he's having that moment where he connects with this Jesus Christ and maybe his messenger. And so Diana has gone to the Vatican archives and looks up the actual story, like not what you read about in church in a sermon, but the Latin text. And this wasn't some like beautiful beatific, whatever you say, beautiful angel giving his good graces or her good graces to St. Francis. He's experiencing horrible wounds. He has pain, and he even, I think, dies from them. And he doesn't describe it as an angel. He describes it basically as what probably is a craft. And this is radiation or something.
No matter where you're watching Sean Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts.